Hello there.
Good evening.
Alfred Hitchcock's 1946 film Notorious is not only one of his greatest films, but one of the great films to come out of Hollywood, because it asks great questions of us. It asks, when does patriotism border on exploitation? When does espionage border on poisonous fidelities to one's beliefs? When does flirtation border on sexual blackmail? These are the motifs and themes with which Notorious deals.
As far as I know, you've made no new conquests.
Well, that's something.
8 days. Practically whitewashed.
I'm very happy there. Why won't you let me be happy?
Nobody's stopping you.
In 1945, when Notorious went into production, Hitchcock was still working under the terms of a 7-year contract for the producer, David Selznick, who brought him over from England. Selznick wanted to control every one of his films. You don't do that with Alfred Hitchcock, because Alfred Hitchcock wanted to exert complete control over every aspect. Each of them was too much a gentleman to cause a public uproar. But, for example, the first film was Rebecca. Selznick had the habit of coming down to the set and wanted to approve what Hitch was doing. And as soon as Selznick appeared, the camera broke down. And as soon as he was gone, miraculously, the camera was running perfectly. Rebecca won the Oscar for Best Picture of the Year, the Oscar, of course, going to the producer, David Selznick. Notorious wasn't a Selznick studio production and was done at RKO for a very simple reason. David O. Selznick was infatuated with Jennifer Jones, whom he eventually married, and he prepared for her a picture called Duel in the Sun, which took 2 years in script and 2 years in shooting. And when Notorious was ready for the cameras, Selznick was still shooting. He needed money for Duel in the Sun also, and sold it to RKO for $800,000. Hitchcock was totally on his own, producing, directing, writing, and in control of Notorious. Now he could go much further and deeper and personalize it, which he did. Hitchcock was not at all shy about saying that he never turned to first-rate literature on which to base a film, for the simple reason that first-rate literature is complete in itself. You turn to something popular. You turn to something that you feel you can make better in strictly visual terms. And generally, he turns pre-existent material or stories that he spins with the writer and turns it into something Hitchcockian. In the case of Notorious, there was a story in the 1920s by John Tainter Foote, published serially in the Saturday Evening Post, called The Song of the Dragon. That contains the germ of something like Notorious. A woman is forced by political expediency to be a character like Mata Hari. What Hitchcock did was to take a very, shall we say, unremarkable story and turn it into this great, great work. And it's Hitchcock and Ben Hecht's script. Ben Hecht was a journalist. He was one of the great writers in American history. He could take a storyline with a director or a piece of pre-existent material and turn it into something completely visual and brilliant and true to the characters and sparkling dialogue in a week to 10 days. Very few writers could do that. I mean, when we look at some of Hecht's credits, Hecht got the Academy Award first year it was given for screenplay, 1927, Underworld. That was followed by 400 scripts, including Queen Christina, The Prisoner of Zenda, Gone with the Wind. He had a lot to do with Rebecca, with which he has no credit. He didn't care about the credit. And the Hitchcock films, of course. Spellbound, Notorious. The Paradine Case, no credit. Strangers on a Train is mostly Ben Hecht.
my sentence should not be pronounced?
No, Your Honor.
Yes, I have something to say. You can put me away, but you can't put away what's going to happen to you and to this whole country.
Notorious is a dark film, and that darkness comes from the refusal on the part of both Hitchcock and Ben Hecht to glamorize intelligence agencies in government. And that came out of Hitchcock's lifelong suspicion that governments in and of themselves were rarely working for the good of their people. Now, cast the net of memory back, I can, to 1946. People didn't expect this kind of attitude about the American government. This at the end of World War II, when there was justifiable pride and celebration for the Allied victory over the Nazi menace. The MacGuffin, the excuse for plot development, was uranium ore, which didn't interest Hitchcock at all. Hitchcock never wanted to make a film that was topical. He never wanted a film that was about something so timely that it would be dated by the time it was released.
Well, you never believed in me anyway, so what's the difference?
Lucky for both of us, I didn't. It wouldn't have been pretty if I believed in you. If I'd figured she'd never be able to go through with it, she'd been made over by love.
If you only once had said that you love me.
What will happen to this poor, benighted woman? Will she be saved by the truth of her love and the bravery of a man who seems incapable of expressing any love, much less acting upon it?
Is that all you have to say to me?
That's what interests him, and that is never restricted to its time. Notorious takes all the elements of a typical romance and turns them upside down. When we see in the ads and in the posters that it's Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman, we think, a love story. Well, not really. This is the story of a hard-drinking woman of easy virtue, not characteristics that audiences associated with Ingrid Bergman in 1946. It's the story of a man who says that he's frightened of women and is terrified of even holding the hand of a woman. These are not elements we associate with Cary Grant. So the romance becomes something that both of these characters are redeemed by circumstances and rising to the moment when they're so close to catastrophe
You don't look so hot.
that they must emerge out of their pasts together.
No. Hangover.
The romance isn't a romance until the end.
Alicia, what's wrong with you?
I'm so glad you came.
Hitchcock, he often said, he never wanted to do things the way they do them in the movies. The cliché. Romantic intrigue from the start, followed by complications, followed by the resolution of complications. He always wanted different levels with the character, different use of the actors within the development of the narrative. And Hitchcock frequently quoted the French 19th century playwright Victorien Sardou, who said, torture the women. That's the key in a drama that everybody will be gripped by. And that became the basis of Hitchcock's meticulous and painstaking search for the right actress and his molding them to precisely what he wanted. Why? Because everyone in the audience can identify with, associate with a woman in trouble. It's as old as the Greek classics and Shakespeare. Ingrid Bergman discussed how she was cast in the first of the three Hitchcock films. And according to her, she remembered walking across the Selznick lot in 1942 or 3, and Hitchcock passed by. And they nodded hello to each other. They were with other people. And Hitchcock turned to his writer or production designer and said, she'll do. As he saw something in her glance, the angle of her head, her smile. He saw not only how she might be photographed, but how she could be used for his purposes. And that was the most important thing to him. Ingrid Bergman told me she was delighted. She always wanted to do something different. That's why she left the comfort and convenience and glamour, so to speak, of Hollywood and went off to do neorealism with Rossellini in Italy because she wanted something different. She always wanted to stretch her talents. Cary Grant is who Hitchcock wanted to be, the debonair ladies' man sailing through life, everything at his command.
Wait a minute. Let me put this on you. You might catch cold.
He had, after all, worked with Cary Grant 5 years earlier in Suspicion, and they got on well. And Grant was terrific in that picture. And Grant needed work in 1945. He was not the superstar we think of later on. And Hitchcock was delighted to take Grant's popularity, his image, and use it in Notorious. Claude Rains, of course, had worked with Ingrid before in Casablanca, and Hitchcock preferred to make the villains British in his films because Hitchcock, remember, came from a minority in England. He was Catholic at a time when Catholics had very few civil rights. He was physically unattractive, or so society considered him. He came not from the upper class, but from the working class. His father was, the British phrase, in trade. He was a grocer. He's not in polite society. And he took with him through life this feeling of being unacceptable by his appearance, by his background, both religious and social and commercial. So I think Hitchcock frequently made villains Englishmen. And that's Hitchcock pulling the nose and the ears of people in his background. However, I think Hitchcock frequently made villains sympathetic, never more powerfully than with Claude Rains in Notorious. I think he made him sympathetic as a foil to the awful things that the so-called heroes are visiting upon poor Alicia.
I see, Captain Prescott. Your method is the best way.
Well, she's good at making friends with gentlemen, and we want somebody inside his house, in his confidence.
You have faith in...
Confidence trick on a grand scale was something Hitchcock mentioned as being at the core of Notorious, and the confidence tricks are the gestures of love. The character of Alicia uses the gesture of love to pass the key from one of her hands to the other, drop it to the floor, and kick it under a table. Moments later, Alicia and Devlin meet outside the wine cellar, and there's a passionate kiss. It's the way they feel, but it's not used for that. It's used to throw Alex off the track, that they've just been into the wine cellar to find out what's really stored in the wine bottles, the uranium ore.
Sorry to intrude on this tender scene.
I couldn't help what happened. He's been drinking.
So he carried you down here.
Oh, please, Alex.
From Alex's viewpoint at the big party scene, we see Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant laughing and giggling and that, but then we cut to the close-up in which they're talking, and they're talking about betraying him.
No, Joseph might have to ask Alex for more wine.
Uh-huh.
He's running out faster than he thought.
All these things are inverted. And that's part of the genius of what Hitchcock always used. I said to him, "You like counterpoint?" And he said, exactly. That the glances and the words are different from what the feelings inside are. And Hitchcock had a fantastic long discussion with me, specifically about Notorious in this regard. When Ingrid Bergman goes to the intelligence agents in Rio, and Cary Grant is there, and she comes with the dreadful news.
He wants me to marry him right away, and I'm to give him my answer at lunch.
The editor, Theron Worth, and Bill Dozier, a man I knew who was the line producer at RKO, said, "Well, if you'd like to do takes on the other actors in the room." "No," said Hitchcock. "I want to keep the camera only on Grant and Bergman, while everybody's talking about the political expediency and the secrets and how far they'll go. What we see is Bergman looking at Grant, and her eyes say, 'Surely you won't let me go this far? You know that we've fallen in love with each other.' Her eyes say that. His eyes say, I can't do anything about this, and he turns away. I invite every viewer of this film to watch it again and see that the story and the feelings are communicated in terms of where and how the characters gaze, because that's how we, the viewers, get the depth of adult feelings in this movie by gazing.
Well, Mr. Sebastian is a very romantic fellow, isn't he, Alicia?
Yes.
Then he'll probably want to take his bride away for a long honeymoon. Won't that hold us up?
Alfred Hitchcock wanted to push the possibilities of what the camera could reveal that had to do with our feelings. That's all he was interested in, manipulating and directing the feelings of the audience by what the camera did and how it moved. He devised a shot that was immensely difficult for the studio, for the set designers, for the cinematographer. When Hitchcock first said he wanted to do it, everybody at the studio said, can't be done. Can't be done. And Hitch said, I show you how we do it. And they devised this vast, Ingrid called it a basket. It was like a scaffold in which the cameraman and his focus puller constantly kept in focus right up to the key in her hand. What Hitchcock is telling us, that in this huge party of elegance and refinery is the key to the underground place where the uranium or the ingredients of the bomb are kept. So within the same shot are two levels of reality. As a motif in films or in any form, people understand that people drinking together is a sign of unity among people and of celebrating an occasion or a person. All the drinking in Notorious is either alcoholic poisoning or, finally, lethal poisoning. It's pushed to its extreme. The people in the beginning who are drinking far too much, and they're drunk, and some of them pass out. There's a logical development from that to the poisoning with arsenic. And Hitchcock doesn't have to use the words, and he doesn't have to show us the villains pouring arsenic out of a bottle into coffee cups. Overstatement infuriated him. He presumed that adults were watching the picture. And we knew what was going on until the final scene. Hitchcock's use of counterpoint and revealing something that has another meaning, another significance, can be found from the very opening shot of Notorious. And let's look at it for just a moment. The film begins with a close-up of a half a dozen cameras. Now, through the door, we see three men standing before one judge. Then Bergman, as Alicia, exits the courtroom alone. Now, what Hitch and Ben Heck did at the end for counterpoint is there's whispers and finally talk of love.
Don't ever leave me.
You'll never get rid of me again.
Cary Grant, he leads her out to the car, and he drives her away to safety. And the last shot, instead of three men standing before one judge in the opening, now we see one man, Alex, standing before three judges who are about to destroy him. This structure, when I noticed this after seeing the film probably 10, 12, 15 times, and I sat down with Hitchcock and I said, I don't think, a lot of people see that. And he said, we hope they don't. Because if they do, the thing looks artificial and too directly structured. But I said to him, am I on the right track? And he smiled. Of course. It's structure that makes a story visually brilliantly told and accessible. These characters at the end are redeemed from what they were at the beginning. And this is why I think one can watch this film endlessly and see more each time and feel more each time. The art seems to remain static, but the act of understanding it enables us to understand ourselves even more deeply. I think that's how we grow.